Jinnah of Pakistan by Stanley Walpert. Chapter 17, Quetta and Peshawar, 1945 to 1946. On February 18, 1946, most of the sailors in the Royal Indian Navy in Bombay Harbour went on strike for higher wages. The next day, 3,000 of those mutineers, as the British considered them, marched round Bombay, stirring tens of thousands of ardent street supporters. The Congress flag flew from both the HMIS Talwar and the HMIS Lahore, as well as from the hats of many jubilant sailors who called themselves members of the INN, Indian National Navy, in emulation of Bose's INA, Indian National Army. On February 22nd, the mutineers were told that only unconditional surrender would be accepted. General Sir R. M. Lockhart, in command of Bombay, had ample force available, Wavell reported, so that if ships open fire, they will have to be sunk. Vallabhbhai Patel went out to the ships and persuaded the mutineers to surrender without firing. Sailors in Karachi harbour followed the lead of their Bombay comrades. However, and in the aftermath of both mutinies, rioting left some 200 civilians dead as elections continued. Provincial returns from the Punjab in late February gave the League 75 of the 88 Muslim seats, a clear mandate for Pakistan among Muslims of the province, though not enough votes to allow the League to form a ministry, without either Sikh or Congress support. In Sindh, League's plight was much the same, with 28 out of the 34 seats, while in Assam, though even a higher percentage of Muslim League candidates won, 31 out of 34. Congress again refused to enter a coalition government with its most hated rival. Jinnah's party soon scored a singular victory in Bengal, however, winning 113 out of the 119 Muslim seats. The League lost badly on the frontier with only 17 out of 38 seats. The overall provincial tally gave the League more than 88% of Muslim vote nonetheless, quite enough to legitimize the Pakistan demand in the eyes of the world. The British government and the British people desire, without reservation, to consummate the promises and pledges that have been made. Pethick Lawrence stated as he and his cabinet colleagues touched Indian soil that March 23rd. Major Woodrow Wyatt returned to India with the cabinet mission as Cripps' assistant and was the first member of the mission to meet with Jinnah again, visiting him at home in New Delhi on March 27th. Major Wyatt had an old friend who is quite close to Jinnah, the beautiful young Tazi, Mumtaz Shah Nawaz, Sir Muhammad Shafi's granddaughter, who kept him informed of Jinnah's thinking and the internal dynamics of the League to which she belonged. The Muslim League seems to be solidly behind Jinnah, Wyatt reported to Cripps on March 28th. Cripps met with Jinnah for an hour on the morning of March 30th. He was calm and reasonable, but completely firm on Pakistan. As a result of that conversation, Jinnah agreed to invite Gandhi to meet him, as was so often the case at the start of previous negotiations. Jinnah's opening posture was surprisingly cordial and disarmingly reasonable. Gandhi appeared before the mission on April 3rd, naked except for a dhoti and looking remarkably healthy, Wavell reported. Mr. Gandhi said that he had passed 18 days with Mr. Jinnah. He claimed to be a sincere friend of the Muslims but had never been able to appreciate Pakistan, which Mr. Jinnah says he means. His Pakistan was a sin which he, Mr. Gandhi, would not commit. The substance of Pakistan, as he understood it, was independence of culture and a legitimate ambition. The two-nation theory is far more dangerous. The Muslim population is a population of converts, all descendants of the Indian-born people. Jinnah is sincere, but his logic is utterly at fault, especially as a kind of mania possesses him. He himself was called a maniac, and he therefore honored Jinnah for his mania. He asked Jinnah whether his own son Harilal Gandhi, who had gone over to the Muslim religion, changed his nationality by doing so. Let Mr. Jinnah from the first government and choose its personnel from elected representatives in the country. The viceroy would appoint them formally, but in fact, Mr. Jinnah would choose. If he does not do so, then the offer to form a government should be made to Congress. The interim government must be absolutely national. Mr. Jinnah could choose who he liked for his government. They would be subject to the vote of the assembly from which they were drawn. Pathik Lawrence interrupted Gandhi at this point to note that Jinnah's party had not won a majority of the assembly seats. Hence, he would be asked to preside over a government, most of whose ministers belonged to the parties other than his own. Gandhi said that was inescapable. The Secretary of State pointed out that Jinnah's government would, in that case, have to be predominantly Hindu. Mr. Gandhi said he did not underrate the difficulties of the situation which the delegation had to face. If he were not an irresponsible optimist, he would despair of any solution. Jinnah arrived for his interview the next morning at 10 and spoke to the mission for 3 hours, of which at least 2 were, to his mind, noted Wavell, entirely wasted. Jinnah began with a historical survey of India, showing how rarely in its long past India had been unified. A Hindu will wash his hands after shaking hands with a Muslim, he argued, though he personally was probably more scrupulous in that particular habit than any Hindu he knew. It seemed, moreover, that he professed too much when he added, "No Hindu will let Mr. Jinnah have a room in his budding Hindu society, and philosophy are the most exclusive in the world. How are you to put 100 millions of Muslims together with 250 millions whose way of life is so different?" Cripps then asked whether Jinnah thought the difference between Hindus and Muslims in Bengal was greater than the difference between the Pathans and Muslims of Sindh. Jinnah argued that the fundamentals were common to all Muslims. He had travelled everywhere, and wherever he met Muslims, they believed in one God. They believed in equality of men and in human brotherhood. The Hindus believed in none of these principles. Pathik Lawrence and Cripps both tackled Jinnah on questions of defense, especially Pakistan's vulnerability from the northwest, trying their best to get him to admit that some unified joint chiefs structure would be best for all parties concerned. But Jinnah stood his ground on a totally sovereign Pakistan demand, demonstrating the singular tenacity of his advocacy. Nehru was on tour in Southeast Asia at this time. His visit to Malaya was a great popular success, thanks in no small measure to the warmth of Lord and Lady Mountbatten's welcome there. In all the public speeches which Nehru made during the visit, the central theme was Asiatic unity. A British official reported to the India office. He was a little scornful of Jinnah and doubted very much whether he had either the intention or the power to start a revolt in India if he did not secure Pakistan. He said, "Rather reminds me of a man who was charged with the murder of his mother and father and begged the clemency of the court on the ground that he was an orphan." Cripps was then ready with his top secret double-barreled solution for Congress and the League to consider. Proposal A was a 3-part Union of all India offer, with the Hindu majority provinces, Muslim majority provinces and princely states all under the umbrella of a minimal union government that controlled defense, foreign affairs and communications. Proposal B was that there should be 2 Indias formed from the territories of British India, Hindustan and Pakistan, to either of which the Indian states could be invited to federate. The exact limits of Pakistan would be determined from the religious identity of the populations in all districts in the northwest and northeast regions. Since Pakistan was predicated on the two-nation theory based solely on religion, It would be wholly inconsistent with this theory if non-Muslim majority areas should be added to Pakistan in order to give a better economic basis, nor would it add to its eventual stability if large minorities were to be thus included against their will. There would have to be some form of treaty drawn up between these two independent sovereign states to deal with essential economic matters and questions of defense, foreign policy, and communications, vital to both nations. Since time was running out, Cripps proposed presenting the details of these two schemes to the leaders of all major parties, insisting that within a few days they notify the mission of their willingness to accept either Plan A or Plan B. If neither of the plans meets with general acceptance, we must recommend that the one which has the greatest volume of support is immediately acted upon. Failing that general acceptance, we shall use all our influence to put through that scheme which has the greatest measure of support. Another week of interviews contributed little to what the mission had already learned, but helped refine their alternative schemes, which were presented first of all to Jinnah on April 16, 1946. Before the interview with Jinnah, we had 20 minutes press photography, sitting round a table and very obviously not talking business. Wavell reported, "I dislike this modern craze for publicity." Turnbull, Wavell, and Cripps had each prepared briefs on how best to tackle Jinnah, a unique tribute to his powers of debate. Pethick Lawrence opened the meeting by informing Jinnah that his full and complete demand for Pakistan had little chance of acceptance and that he could not reasonably hope to receive both the whole of the territory, much of it inhabited by non-Muslims, which he claimed, and the full measure of sovereignty, which he said was essential. Hence, there was Plan A or B, each of which he spelled out. Which did Jinnah prefer? Mr. Jinnah asked how Pakistan came in under the proposed All India Union. The secret record of that interview reported. The Secretary of State said that briefly there were two propositions, a small Pakistan with sovereign rights and a treaty relation, and a larger Pakistan. The latter would come together with Hindustan on terms of equality within an All India Union. Sir S. Cripps said that under the second alternative, two federations would be created linked by a union centre. The communal balance would be retained at the centre by some means even if the states came in there. Mr. Jinnah asked how the union executive would be formed. Sir S. Cripps said that the federations would choose the members of the union executive. Mr. Jinnah asked how, if there were equal representation, decisions were to be reached. Sir S. Cripps said that responsibility would go back to the two federations if agreement could not be reached. Mr. Jinnah expressed doubts as to whether this arrangement would work in practice. Matters would have to be decided every day in regard to defense. From what had been said, he had not been able to get anything which would enable him to say that the union idea was worth considering. Mr. Jinnah said that no amount of equality provided on paper was going to work. Would there, for example, be equality of each community in the services? The Secretary of State said that Mr. Jinnah seemed to be turning to the other alternative and asked Mr. Jinnah's views on that. Mr. Jinnah said that once the principle of Pakistan was conceded, the question of the territory of Pakistan could be discussed. His claim was for the 6 provinces, but he was willing to discuss the area. He could not possibly accept that Calcutta should go out merely for the sake of 5 or 6 lakhs of Hindus, largely depressed classes who would prefer Pakistan, most of whom were imported labor. The Secretary of State said he wished to emphasize that the delegation did not consider that either of these two alternatives would be readily acceptable to the Congress. Mr. Jinnah said that he thought, with respect, that the Congress stood to losing nothing. The unity of India was a myth. Jinnah's legal adroitness proved more than Pethick Lawrence, Cripps, or Alexander could outweigh, though all three wise British brains tried their best. Finally, the Secretary of State suggested that Mr. Jinnah should think the matter over further. After the delegation's return from Kashmir, perhaps Mr. Jinnah would let them know of his position. Round 1 was over. Jinnah knocked nobody down, but surely won on points before the bell sounded, giving him an interlude of much needed rest.